Welcome to Sanctum. You're listening to The 100 Podcast, a show about CW sci-fi series, The 100. I'm Daniel Prime.
Hallowed be his name. And I'm Olga, the One Crew Warrior. Today, we're discussing Season 7, Episode 10, entitled A Little Sacrifice.
Just a little sacrifice.
Just a tad.
Of Diosa.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Indra.
Well, she didn't die.
Well, she sacrificed her honor.
Oh, it's true. You're smart.
Thanks.
Right, so
I thought it was obvious.
This is our
take it.
podcast, guys, where we react to having just watched the latest episode of The 100. We do these quick reaction videos right after we watch the episodes, and then on Mondays we release longer audio podcasts where we go way more in depth. This is really just like, what did you think of this episode? Also, as a quick piece of housekeeping, we just released our Season 5 and 6 rewatch reviews. So if you want to watch that, we also talk about our top 10 episodes of the series so far and our top 10 villains.
It gets divisive. So, little tease right there.
Yeah. So I'll put a card up on YouTube for that, but it's also on audio platforms. It's not on Apple because Apple's being a stupid poop, but if you subscribe on Apple, it shows up, so...
Subscribe.
All right. What did you think of A Little Sacrifice?
I thought this was a really good episode.
Yeah. My favorite of the season so far.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It felt kind of like I want to say it's a return to form, but Clark still isn't the center of this episode. But I'm okay with everything that I saw. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it was finally paying dividends on all the buildup, right? Mm-hmm. We're finally getting somewhere, and that feels good. Yeah. It also kind of shows off even more the way certain things had been held off in the past. Like the whole is Echo bad or whatever? Like, is she actually with them? Was completely just a waste of time.
No, she's not. Just immediately, yep. She's not.
That said, I'm just going to do a really quick bullet point thing, and then we'll obviously circle back. Yeah. But her performance, fantastic. That culmination of that arc, great. I really enjoyed Gabriel and Cadigan playing off of each other. I really enjoyed Jordan and Nyla figuring out things about the Bardoans. Shade Hedda versus Indra was awesome. Great stuff for Maddie. Great stuff for Murphy.
No complaints performances-wise.
Yeah.
Anders got his villain spiel out of the way before he died. Yep. So good for you.
And honestly, I'd say my only I don't know. It's not really a critique of the episode. My only issue is that we basically knew Diosa would die because of the trailer for the season. Yeah. And the fact that the scene, if people don't remember, in the trailer for the season, which obviously was released before even the first episode, mm-hmm. It shows Hope really upset up against the wall.
The glass door.
Yeah. And so since then, we were like, is Diosa dead?
And Octavia behind her. Mm-hmm. So we're like, well, it's not Octavia who's dying.
Yeah. So to me, that really took the emotional oomph out of seeing Diosa die, even though I think that the way she died was good, mm-hmm. the storytelling around it was good. There was no shock and emotional impact because it was more just I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't a twist, but it felt earned.
Yeah,
and it also, you could say it's foreshadowed in its own way by the fact that Indra survives. Mm-hmm. It's this episode seems like it's building to an emotional gut punch. Yeah. And yes, Indra still did something that was hard for her, but it's not, it wasn't a death. It's not a final act.
I think that it would have felt a little bit anticlimactic if we didn't get the Diosa death.
Yes.
Because I do, as much as I enjoyed the Indra versus Shade Hedda thing, if that was the end of the episode, I think I would have walked away a little bit let down. Mm-hmm. How do you want to organize? There's so much to talk about. What do you want to talk about first?
Let's start with Sanctum, because that's a little bit more light.
Is it?
Even though it starts with murder and threatening a child and smearing the blood of the damned on her face.
But dude, he threatened a child so well.
I mean...
JR born 5 ever. And also Lola.
She
really good performance.
is doing so well. I think she's doing really well this season overall.
Yeah.
We just finished watching season 5.
Yep.
It was like she was new to acting at that time, new-ish.
I mean, she had been in other things,
yes,
but she was new to the role at least.
Yeah.
You know?
So at this point, I'm like, Team Maddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to see her. And I think they're writing her better, too.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's definitely, of characters happening, like, she has one of the better through lines, I feel like, going here. So, yeah, him threatening her, awesome. I think the way they filmed the scene of Indra versus Shaedheda, really cool and visceral and different for the show.
So cool.
Yeah.
Really good fight cinematography.
Yeah. Inside the episode, they talked about how they had to film the whole thing in a day, and it was a brand new director for them. They purposely brought in someone who's very like cinematic. And I think that it worked quite well. I liked sort of weaving between different bodies and things like that.
Yeah.
I think we feel slightly differently about Shaedheda's transformation in this episode.
I mean, I agree with you. Yeah. Mostly. Why don't you say what you think?
I think that it was an unwise choice to make him this zany.
He's been zany this whole time, Dan.
Yes and no. Yes and no. It's a fine. Like, here's the thing. Like, in the opening scene, when he's threatening Maddie, yeah, he's cueing the scenery and he's larger than life. And he was still, okay, yes, he was silly with the fucking flame thing or the candles last episode.
Yeah.
But, like, this to me, I don't want to just look at him and laugh just by looking at him.
I think we'll get over that very quickly with the performance. Yeah. Because he's still intimidating. Mm-hmm. And he just so happens to now have a weird hair extension mohawk and, or rat tail. And that's just something we have to accept about him.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, again, the performance is great.
I like the clean shaven look, though.
I do like the
I think that's an appropriate shift.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, the mohawk is.
Oh, boy. Yeah. So I think they did a good job here because obviously when they got into solo gunplay or whatever it is.
It is that,
yeah.
I think.
It was like, okay, which direction is this going to go? It was to me, I was like, there's 3 options, obviously. It's like Indra dies, he dies, or something zany happens, right? And I was kind of, I was thinking something zany happened, which is what, I don't know, zany is Maddie cutting his eye out, but that is what happened.
Someone out of left field.
Yeah.
Something out of left field.
Yeah, I would be talking, while the commercials were going, I was like, you have to think about it like Lexa versus Roan and how it's like neither of them actually died, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they had killed Indra here, that would have been a huge bummer. It was too soon to kill Shaedheda with all the work that they'd done. But I just wonder what people in general are going to think about this Shaedheda. Here's the thing. I know the candle thing was big, and he's always been big this season. But
he's also intimidating.
This is a huge step in the zany category.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, yeah. I am very interested in seeing maybe not next week, but the next episode that features Shaedheda. Yeah. I am very fascinated by the idea of Maddie's face with blood-covered hands looking like that. Yeah. And I think the performance, whatever styling will pull off whatever styling they do.
Just like, why did you have to do that?
To really, really set him apart. And in part, I also think it's because he died young.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this thing of like, I am the rebel. I am the...
Well, I think the other thing is
larger than life.
They wanted it
larger
to be
than
like
life because
this is his coming out as Shaedheda, not Russ Hedda. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the real thing, is they wanted it to people stop confusing whether they're saying Russell or Shaedheda or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's Shaedheda.
They wanted it to be clear now that he wasn't in hiding. This isn't Russell's body. Like, this is Shaedheda's body. And I get that.
Yeah. It's just... It's a hell of a costume. Yeah. That's what it is.
I like Maddie coming out and doing the eye thing. I think that was a cool moment.
I like that is like her next thing of center after her panic attack.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, She didn't defeat him. She had to run away.
Yeah.
But she's capable and she can like move past the challenges and the trauma of her life, which is like what we want for this generation, for her generation.
Yeah, definitely.
She's comforting another boy who lost his parents or one of his parents to Shade Hedda's massacre. It's like she relates to him. She will be there for people like her is kind of the promise that I'm feeling out of that.
Well, and I really like how that then connects back to Murphy. Like, we were talking, sort of laughing about how you were saying Murphy's had the same, like, I'm going to be a hero arc over and over again. And this is him becoming more than just a hero. This is him becoming a leader and really in it for more than just him. Like before it was like, I'm a hero because I like being a hero. Now it's like, I'm willing to put other people before myself.
I am no longer my priority.
Yeah.
Other people deserve to live, even if I don't. And it's like, and it's not just Amori. It's not just like a couple of the people he cares about. It's just like the greater good.
Yeah. Well,
our little cockroach is sprouting wings into a flying cockroach.
I have a funny little I don't know, allegory or connection, whatever you want to call it. In that it kind of reminds me of Tony Stark at the end of the first Avengers doing the jumping on the grenade play as Captain America talks, where he's like, before that, it's like, yeah, you're a hero or whatever, but like, you're not the person to put other people before yourself. This is him having that evolution, which I think is really cool.
Now I kind of want Richard Harmon to be like
the young Tony Stark.
Young Tony Stark, yeah.
Wouldn't say no to more Richard Harmon in my life in general.
I think he'd pull it off.
All right, so we talked about Sanctum. I want to talk about Bardo on sort of a wide scale thing, right? Because we get this stuff from Jordan, talking about the Bardoan, history or
the translation.
Yeah, their Bible or whatever you want to call it.
Their prophecy.
Yeah. So first of all, love that they're actually giving Jordan stuff.
So cool that his like heritage and what Monty passed along to him and the like second generation struggle of like, well, my first generation dad kind of learned something from his like that relate with the Korean. It was just really cool. It was nice representation and that kind of thing.
And I like how they've definitely toned him down from where it felt like they were setting him up at the end of season 6 and the beginning of this season, but he's still keeping going with that like more peaceful mentality. Right now, I feel like he's in the spot that we would want for Monty's son, right? Yeah. Which is nice. So between actually seeing Dioza crystallized and obviously all this stuff with the Bardoan Bible, I think we can officially say the Bardoans are real. Right? I feel like they were as an alien race on this planet that went extinct.
Yeah.
I'm just going to believe it now.
Yeah.
What this episode to me confirmed also is there is no last war. It's all been much ado about nothing. And we talked about, especially, I don't remember what podcast it was. Maybe it was after the whole Judgment Day thing from the prequel. But the idea that, it's more about being judged. It's more about, like, are you good enough? And where I feel like it's pointing, and I think I vaguely have talked about this, I can't remember if I talked about it on podcast or not, that it's like an alien race left a bunch of Rubik's Cubes out through the universe that are the stones. And if you solve the puzzle, you're good enough and they're going to take you. I think we are going to see other aliens.
I'd be fine with that overall at this point, I guess. Like, of all the things we've seen, of all of the directions headed, I guess I'd rather aliens than like more weird time travel stuff.
At this point, they feel like they've dropped the whole time travel angle. I mean, we don't know what's going on in Etheria next week, but to be clear, they never had a time travel angle. No, but like they haven't really been.
I'm saying from our positing theories of like what will they unlock.
But my point being that even on the show, they haven't really been dealing with the time dilation as a core principle as much lately.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that aliens seem like the most likely thing at this point. does it give you? You were the one who was more intense than I was about the CGI at the end here.
I mean, I didn't think it was atrocious. It just felt like everything felt so grounded that seeing the crystals kind of pimple out in a weird way. It just didn't. Could have been our TV being very, very high def. We have a very high def TV. Anyway, no, it's just sometimes things like that I get just very picky with, and it's kind of arbitrary, and that's fully my bag.
I think that they did a fine job for their budget. It would worry me though if we had actual talking aliens that were in a similar space,
unless they're saving their budget or something like that.
I just don't think they have very much budget though to begin with.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Uncanny Valley stuff kind of bothers me. So
yeah,
the beings could be beings of light, and that would be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure they could find ways around it, or it's we look like this to you because that's how your mind can comprehend it, or whatever. It's either at this point I feel like it's either aliens or it's something more spiritual. I have trouble buying that it's anything. The whole idea of the simulation, that feels less likely now, unless it's if you solve the test, then you're worthy of leaving the simulation now.
I was wondering that. I'm what if it's you get to go behind the code if you solve it?
Yeah.
But what is behind the code? And then they could just leave it completely open-ended.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's where I'm leaning. It's
the
leaning. More and more we see, the more I'm and again, the whole test of who's worthy. Also, who's going to administer the test. You can't promise us a test that's beyond the light and sending someone, only one person. Will it be one person? I
think it has to be Clark. It doesn't make sense.
You don't think it'll be Clark and Bellamy together?
Well, who knows? I think I'll have a better answer for that at the end of the next episode.
I agree, but at the same time, if anything, it's this thing of if he hasn't had a lot of screen time, maybe he can have a lot of impact by going.
Well, I think it's clear from the promo for next week that they have plans, and I think they have big plans for what they are going to do with him going forward.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be here for the rest of the episodes.
I'm just the mystery of Bellamy being alive or dead. That was not a real mystery. That was not interesting fake out or whatever to the fans. It gets spoiled by a promo. There's not even a mysterious figure in the trailer. There's not even an actual. I'm not saying I needed a cliffhanger of that being relevant in this episode, given again the emotional gut punch of Dioza. But that said, it's all of this buildup to Bellamy being presumed dead, and we're seeing his reveal eating a scorpion on an icy planet. I'm just
in a
guys,
promo, I kind of agree. The problem is I don't think it would have worked for this particular episode, but I had been waiting for weeks for an end of an episode where we just cut to him walking through this really short, small thing of him in a cloak or whatever.
Exactly.
And we're oh my God, Bellamy. Or it is a little bit of a letdown to see it that way, but I am excited to see him either way.
I know. I am too. I'm just really all of that for.
Do you think it will actually be, we had the Nakara episode that was barely Nakara. Next week's Etheria. Do you think it really will be almost entirely Bellamy, or do you think that that's just all they want to focus on in the promo?
I think that's what they want to focus on in the promo. I think we might not see too much of Sanctum next week because they've been getting a lot of screen time and what we know of contracts and things like that. Often there's an episode without main players and whatever.
Well, and I think that at this point you kind of want to. It's weird because now you want to slow that plot line down, right?
Well, they're hiding in a bunker, so it's this thing. But if it's going to be the repercussions of their actions or Hope's actions on Bardo, and now Levitt's free and he's seeing that, I think it'll be Bardo and Etheria. And the only thing that I can kind of see as being the twist to that is if Gaia shows up on Etheria.
I'm hopeful that it's all Etheria. Because they could even have it be that it's all Etheria and then our people show up on Etheria and then we jump backwards to how our people got there. Given how this season has been going, I wouldn't be shocked. But,
maybe. All right, so let's go back to...
There's so much to talk about.
There's a lot. And we talked about the promo, which we don't typically do. So anyway, let's go back to the really...
Echo? Yeah. So I think this was... well, very well done. I do think that they didn't necessarily need that middle step in the journey where she pretended to be a spy for a while. I mean, at the same time, that's the only way that they would have got her to the point where she knew how to kill everybody. But like,
the only reason that works is not because of storytelling. It works because there was a 2-week hiatus, and they left us on the question of, is Echo really that much of a traitor? Blah blah blah. Like,
not that anybody, I mean, at least most of us didn't think she actually was.
Right.
I think the point being, you know, forgetting the past, Tasia did a really good job here.
Yes.
And I thought that worked really well and was interestingly contrasted right away with the Hope thing, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I liked how they had Clark come up and she had actual things to say, and Echo pointing out that it was actually kind of interesting because it was like, for a second, Echo's like, hey, Clark, actually, what you've done isn't that bad. And in which people said that more often. I liked that. I liked having Raven come and talk to her about the time in the ring. Again, it all comes back to, well, if we had ever really seen them actually be sisters before now, that would have been nice.
Yeah,
but
they were seemingly really good friends, but the jump to like family.
Well, I just don't even really feel like I quite saw them as friends. I saw them as friends for like a minute.
Yes.
You know,
a minute.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying is I think that was great dialogue, and I think Lindsay did it well and Echo did it well, but it wasn't quite earned in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on from Echo, Hope, you know, had a big impact at the end here.
Poor Hope.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's such a, like, the tragedy of her, right? Because I shouldn't really say poor Hope. Like, at this point, like, that's pretty fucked up, man.
She's brought this on herself.
Yeah. I like that, you know, she was willing to kill all of them. And
there are no innocents here.
Yeah.
There's no... It's literally what Dioza... We just discussed this on our season 5 and 6 rewatch podcast of, like, the reason Dioza is okay with bombing civilians, sending a missile strike down on them, was because she saw one crew as an army and there are no civilians. And now she sees Hope saying the same thing about the Bardoans who are raised brainwashed into being in this cult from childhood. Like...
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a great ending for Dioza. And, you know, I'm not particularly, like, that upset about it because it's the final season anyway, right? I think she got a great send-off here. Hope, I think it's an interesting thing because she's, like, morally, like, she did the thing. Just because the consequences didn't work out, like, she still tried to kill all of them. So, like... where does one go morally from there? How do you look at that character from there? Like, her mom gave her another chance, sort of, but, like, I don't know. I think that's interesting, and it's gonna be interesting to see her and Echo bouncing off of each other after this happening. Yeah, I don't know.
It's something I do feel like. While we've had shades of this kind of dynamic and nonetheless, there's nothing quite like Hope and Dioza on the show yet.
I mean, there's nothing. That's the thing, is as crappy, if you're gonna have a character do something super shitty, immediately punishing them for it that degree helps a lot. Like, you know,
she's punished, but still again leaves her room for growth and dimension and redemption. I hope she gets it. If Blood Reina could get redemption, Hope Dioza better.
And I'm glad, you know, just circling back a little bit about the Echo thing, I'm glad that the show was open and clear about that. Like, this isn't just Mount Weather again. This is not the same thing. You know, it's much worse. And so I don't know. I think they did a really good job with Hope, and I'm excited to see where they go from there. I think that Shelby is so great that I'm a little biased in Hope's favor and I just don't want to hate this character, even though she's doing shitty things.
She's so bad.
You know, but I think that's by design. You know?
It's this frustrating thing of like, you see the repercussions that are going to happen out of her actions. That's what Dioza saw, and you just like want her to stop before she does it, but you can't stop her.
Yep.
She just has to hit that rock bottom.
Yep.
Literally with the crystals, it's rock bottom.
One last thing I want to mention, because I know people are probably going to want us to talk about it. Echo talks about Bellamy, and Bellamy would be here if it was one of us.
Right.
Pretty firmly showing that she doesn't really know her boyfriend, which I'm sure people have thoughts about. I don't know.
That's a good point, Dan.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because it hasn't. I don't know, because it's a different shade than the things people have said like leading up to here about why they aren't working, right? It's like obviously like up to now it was like, oh well, she's not really herself around him or whatever. But now they're basically saying like she doesn't even know him. The him that she's been with isn't the him that she's talking about. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I mean, I guess with their time on the ring and the things that they've talked about and their regrets and their decisions, like Bellamy would have talked about how he wished he hadn't done that to a sleeping army.
Yeah.
That were on their side.
Yeah.
So in theory, she would know that he hated his own act of like vengeance and fear.
I think that in some ways the reason that they did this, and I'll be interested to see obviously if there's repercussions for their actual relationship, but I think that the real reason they were saying that was to try to draw a parallel between Echo and Bellamy and where Bellamy used to be. And that, and they're trying to say that, oh, Echo is old Bellamy and hasn't learned those lessons, and this is sort of her learning those lessons. That's probably the most pro Echo take you can take on that. But I don't know. It was interesting.
I mean, this Echo, this emotional person, it isn't the Echo the spy.
Yeah.
Because she was cold and calculating and like what is best for everyone. Like, she knows this isn't really best for everyone. It's pure vengeance.
Yeah.
Like, that's new for her.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
kind of uncharted territory.
Well, I mean, the thing that I meant to bring up earlier actually is that this episode really so we didn't even talk. I'm not going to get into detail about the Cadigan stuff because we can do that on the longer podcast. But the idea what they're talking about here, where it's like, have you ever done anything because of a loved one or whatever that you regret? And that ends up being like the full thrust here, which is that Echo gets so close to doing something unimaginable because of a loved one, and then Hope does it. You know, and in some ways it is saying, hey, maybe the disciples have a point, but also that, Gabriel's the point. It's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. But I'm excited to talk about the Cadigan Gabriel conversation more on the podcast.
And I'm glad we got rid of Anders.
Yeah.
Personally. Because now we have Cadigan. We don't really need them both.
Need him.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And at least Hope got to kill him before she lost her mom.
Yay.
And on that lovely note.
Cheerful.
Man, there was so much that I'm so happy to have a good episode to talk about, I
love it.
Very good stuff.
I think this is a really great episode.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan,
top
are we
10?
Nominating this for one of the top 10 episodes of The 100?
I think it probably will be nominated, yeah.
Don't know if it'll make it in, but
I think
we'll discuss it.
No, it'll definitely be nominated. We'll see if it gets in. And maybe it will. I don't know. All right.
Keep an ear out for that.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Check out our various audio podcast channels, the100podcast.com, all of that stuff. Monday for our longer audio podcast on this. Please check out our other videos, like, subscribe, share, and leave comments down below, and we'll discuss them on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you, and may we meet again.
May we meet again.